Good afternoon, ladies. This is Carla Matzdorf. I am admin to the group Overcoming Anxiety for Stressed Out Moms Who've Had Enough, and I'm also an anxiety coach. I'm coming on with you today to talk to you about what if thinking. Basically, what it is, why we do it, and how you can take this time, the steps to control those thoughts and have some peace in your mind. So I like to start off all my life trainings with definitions because I want us to be on the same page, so to speak. You know, I don't want to start talking about something and you're like, what is she talking about? So as you come on, just introduce yourself, let me know who you are. And let me know as I'm talking if you have any questions, if there's anything I can answer that you need clarification for, and I will definitely give more clarification. So with that said, what if thinking? What is it? So basically what if thinking is when something happens and your mind goes into these worst case scenarios, okay? Your mind starts thinking about, oh, again, I forgot to silence my phone. You know what? This time I'm going to take the time to do it because I don't want this going off as I'm talking. Okay, I did it. Great. All right. Sorry about that. So what if thinking basically is when something happens, all right, and your mind just keeps asking yourself the same question over and over. What if this were to happen? What if that were to happen? In other words, your mind is coming up with all these scenarios, okay? And usually they're very negative. Usually they're what we call worst case scenarios that just play over and over in your mind because it's trying to figure things out, right? So they just pop up in the mind. It seems like suddenly you just get these what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? They play over and over, and they're usually very future based. You're imagining these negative outcomes. Excuse me. They're not very focused on the present time. So, excuse me. So, for example, like I had a lot of issues with sleep. And a lot of times my what ifs were, what if I can't sleep? What if I don't sleep? What's going to happen? It was all like based around sleep. So I always wondered, am I going to sleep? What if I can't sleep? Those what ifs just kept going and going. The other thing might be, what if I go to the doctor and he gives me bad news? What if I go to the doctor? And that might go over and over in your mind. I'm going to go to the doctor, and we don't just say the words, we think in pictures too. So we might start seeing ourselves not sleeping as we're saying, what if I don't sleep? We might see ourselves going to the doctor. We might be saying, what if I go to the doctor and I get bad news? So the next thing you know, you're not just saying it. You have these thoughts in your mind of you going to the doctor, sitting down, and your doctor saying, hey, you got A, B, and C. And then the next thing you know, you're thinking of your own funeral. I mean, this is what our mind does. And you're like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And what if? And we focus on these thoughts with such fear, worry, and anxiety. So now, what if thinking, by the way, actually has a good side to it? See, we see it as something bad. But hold on for a second. What if thinking can actually be helpful? And you might say, well, how could that be? Because it's basically destroyed my life. Because what if thinking was a way for you to prepare for the unknown. So what do I mean by that? What if thinking can be helpful? Because when you're fearful, when you're worried, okay, your mind starts going to, but what if this happens? What if that happens? But, so what that does is it helps you to take action. What if thinking can be helpful because it brings the situation to light in your mind and it helps you come up with some kind of plan of action for these things that you're saying. As I said, what if I can't sleep, right? So instead of, oh my gosh, what if I can't sleep and start freaking out about it, what if I can't sleep? Okay, then what? What do I do? So instead of focusing on it with fear, I can really think about it maybe with more of a rational mind, and I could come up with some kind of plan of action. And what if I don't sleep? What happens then? And I can answer those fearful questions that are coming to my mind. I could get more prepared for what may happen. I can take actions that can quiet those what ifs. Those what ifs can also help you. They could also help you with your fears and your insecurities. Because you can start saying, well, why am I getting these what ifs? Why do they keep coming up for me? What does that mean about me? And you could start assessing what those thoughts mean about you. Okay? So, what if thinking, usually it's unrealistic, it's catastrophic, the thoughts drive us crazy, but you see, having these thoughts, okay, what they do is if you start off with fear and worry, that could bring you to action, right? But if you take the time to deal with the thoughts, understand, why am I having these thoughts? And you take that action, okay? You can do something about it. But if you don't take the time and you just have these thoughts and add so much fear to them, right? What's going to happen is that you start focusing on the thoughts and you start feeling what you think in your body. And that's where we get these wonderful symptoms that we always get. Your heart might race, your stomach might start churning, and you might get those knots in your stomach, You might start feeling dizzy and get a headache. What we hold in our mind affects how we feel. All right? So, when you get these what if thoughts, any kind of intrusive thought, catastrophic thought, the thing is, don't try to not think about it. Have you ever been told to do that? Just don't think about it. Don't think about it. The more you try not to, it happens, right? Don't think about the pink elephant or the white elephant or whatever that is. Did you ever hear about that? You're told, don't think about the pink elephant. And so what do? All of a sudden, a pink elephant comes into your mind, right? So let's not think about not sleeping. Let's not think about going to the doctor and getting bad news. But it's going to come to your mind. The more you force it out, the more you pretend it's not there and you try to ignore it, it's going to keep showing up. Because you're not dealing with it. The other thing is, what's not going to help too, is believing every thought you have. Right? You get a thought in your head, and you tell yourself, well, if I'm thinking this, it must be true. Because why would I think it? Right? So we start believing the thoughts that we hold in our minds. Well, there must be some truth to it. It must mean something. Otherwise, why would I think it? So that's not very helpful. So don't believe everything that just pops into your mind. It's your fear talking. It's your emotions talking. It's trying to get you to figure things out. Doesn't mean they're true. Most of what we think is not true. Also, sometimes, we try to justify what we're thinking about. We go back and forth in our heads, but what we're thinking about. Is it true? Is it not true? And we'll get like this thought, and we'll say, well, I'm thinking this because of this, but oh my gosh, but it's okay that I think about, but oh my gosh, and and we will drive ourselves crazy because we're having this thought, and we'll beat ourselves up about it. Or the other thing that's not very helpful with what if thoughts is distracting yourself. Distraction has a place, okay? So you can distract yourself all you want. Like, you can have this negative thought in your head, right? And with that negative thought, you could go, why am I thinking this? And what you'll do is, maybe when you have that negative thought, what you can start doing is you'll start scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, or start watching some kind of YouTube video. Maybe you'll watch a TV show. You'll put on Friends so that you laugh. Maybe you'll play a game with your children. You'll do something to distract yourself from that thought. Anything to not think of the thought. But does it really go away? Because if that thought was so disturbing to you, right? Once eventually you're going to stop scrolling through your phone. Eventually Friends is going to come to an end. And what are you going to watch TV every day, all day long? Or, you're going to have to stop playing with your kids and cook dinner or do something else. Like, eventually what pops up in our mind, whatever's our reality, we're going to have to face it. So now, what should we do? Like, what should we do with these what if thoughts? Now, see, the thing is, what if thoughts, as I said before, and if you came on late, please rewatch this, because I did say that what if thinking can be helpful to you, because it helps you make plans. It helps you come up with a plan of action, right? But that's if you're fearful, you have some worry. Worry and fear can help you take action. Anxiety immobilizes you. If you start having what if thoughts, okay, and you become extremely anxious about these what if thoughts that are in your head, instead of taking action, what's going to wind up happening is you're going to start focusing on that thought, focusing on how that thought makes you feel, and then you get in that anxiety cycle that can spiral and spiral. That can become very hard to get out of if you don't understand all this. So, how do we get out of that what if thinking? All right, what can we do? The first thing, my step, okay, these are things, actually, I'm going to get into this later, but I came up with a formula that I got from the Bible. Okay, I learned this from the Bible. But I'm going to tell it to you first, like in scientific terms, and then I want to talk to you more about what God says and why I got this from the Bible. Okay. So the first thing, my first rule is always the same. Okay. You need to have awareness. You can't fix what you don't know. So how do you fix your what if thoughts if you don't understand what they are? Okay. Thoughts are just thoughts. And if you don't understand that your way of thinking, okay, is not necessarily your truth, you're going to hold on to it like it's true. And no wonder you feel so anxious, right? So the first step really is to acknowledge that thought, that what if thought, that intrusive thought, that catastrophic thought, that thought that's in your mind. Acknowledge it. Don't be like, oh, I don't want to think about this. Get out of my mind. It's too terrible. And I'm sure it is. That's why it's intrusive. That's why it's unwanted. That's why it's catastrophic. You don't want to hold it in your mind. What you want to do is at least acknowledge it. There is a difference. Is this all making sense, ladies? I don't know if I can read your comments or not. Last time I couldn't. Sometimes I can. If you need clarification of what I'm talking about, always let me know. If you have questions, always let me know. Okay, so acknowledge the thought. The next thing would be to get really present and get to the present time. I talked a lot about the present time last week in my life. Okay, the present time is all there is. If you're going to be stuck in the past or the future, you're not focused on what's before you. If you want to get rid of thoughts, what if thinking is really futuristic thinking? We have thoughts of the past too. We can think of something from the past and say, if only I had done this, if only I had done that. And what if that happens again, right? What if that thing from the past that really frightened me and made me anxious, what if that happens again? That's what we need to learn from the past, okay? But getting present is really crucial. It's really crucial. Is to learn how to take that wandering mind that's always in the future, always in the past, and get it to that present time. And when you're in the present time, asking yourself questions like, that what if thought that I'm having, what's the likelihood that that's even going to happen? Like, I'm having this thought, and it's kind of crazy. It's kind of creepy. It's really scaring me. But what's the likelihood it's going to happen? And you might say, well, I don't know what the likelihood is. And I'll give you an example. What if your what if thought is, I'm going on vacation, I'm about to get on a plane. What if the plane goes down? It's a thought that a lot of us have had in our heads. What if the plane goes down? And then we don't want to even get on the plane. We can't enjoy the flight. We don't look forward to our vacation or wherever we're going because what if, right? So what becomes necessary is getting present. What do you have to deal with in that present moment? Okay? Understanding who is in the present with you. What's the likelihood of that even happening? Now, can it happen? Yes. What can you control? What can't you control? That's what it's about. This is a lot about control. We don't like it when we can't control things. And when we can't control things, we get a little anxious, right? So, acknowledge the thought, get really present, okay? What is the likelihood of this thought happening? Okay? Answer that what if. What if? Okay? Well, what's the likelihood and what can I do about it? This is where you do some kind of plan of action. What can I control? The next thing is what can I do to respond differently? Part of overcoming anxiety is understanding you're in a reaction mode right now, okay? Your central nervous system is all revved up. You've got yourself all maybe, you're very anxious, you're panicked, you're depressed about something. Your central nervous system is talking to the brain and vice versa, and things need to be calmed down. You're not going to be able to think about a plan of action if you're thinking with a fearful mind. So how do I be different with this? Maybe think of other possibilities. What else could be true? What else can be true about this situation? That, our fear can lie, well, we say it can lie to us. And it's not that it lies, because sometimes the things that we get off our fear could be true. It's just that our fears, like I say, the mind and body are always trying to protect you, right? So the fear is just trying to get you to take some kind of action, right? How can I be different towards this? So what else could be true? What are the other possibilities? And also think about, have I ever been in this situation before? What has the past taught me about this situation, about this thing that's going on in my mind? Have I ever dealt with something like this before? What happened then? And if you did deal with it and it wasn't a good situation, well, what can I learn from it? Always learn from the past. And the other thing is, when I have what ifs in my head, okay, when I couldn't sleep and I would try to go to sleep every night and my mind would go, well, what if you can't sleep? What if? What if you don't sleep tonight? What if? I started getting really good at saying, now this is part of acceptance. This is where acceptance comes in. So what if? So what if I don't sleep? First of all, is it true that I can't sleep? No, because sleeping is your birthright. I can sleep. It's just that I'm telling myself I can't sleep, which is creating more, more fear, and my mind going, uh-oh, something's wrong, and it's keeping me in this anxiety cycle. See, this is why it's so important to understand the anxiety cycle, because when you understand the anxiety cycle, and I'm just beginning to wonder if I could see any comments. Ladies, if you're making comments, I don't see any of the comments, and I don't know why. Maybe if I go into the group, I can see comments. I'm not seeing comments. And I used to be able to. I don't know why I can't see comments. Let me just go into the group, and I see myself live in the group. Okay, now I'm seeing comments. Okay, not many, but okay, hello. And then you run to Google. Okay, you are truly correct. I get like that all the time. Okay, so these were comments that were made a little bit ago of other things that I said. So I'm going to have to keep looking into the group. For some reason, I'm not getting it on my phone. And sometimes I get it on my phone and I don't see it in the group. I don't know. Facebook keeps changing things and I just don't understand. But anyway, getting back to this, the so what if helps you to take action. It helps you to see things from a different light, okay? It helps you to feel differently about what's going on in your mind. So these are things that can help you with your thoughts and to change those thoughts. Now, what I want to talk about too is how I came up with this formula of having awareness, like acknowledging your thoughts, becoming really present, being different with the thoughts, like thinking different things, and kind of like, I didn't say so much about this, but my last step is like guarding your mind. Now, as I said previously, I got all this from the Bible. When I had debilitating anxiety and I felt I had no control of my emotions and my thoughts, I read the Bible and I got really close to God because I didn't know what else to do. I was on all these different medications. Medication was not helping me. Seeing professionals, the professionals just wanted to medicate me. I couldn't find a professional. I only found one professional that was able to give me some guidance. But I didn't know how to take that information and really implement it so I could get those results. I had to do a lot of that on my own, a lot of trial and error. So understanding the science of it all and forming a stronger relationship with God is where I got to where I am today. So what does God say about your thinking, about what if thinking, about intrusive thoughts? Now, my first step is always about what I say, catching yourself. It's about having awareness. 1 Corinthians 10:5 talks about taking every thought captive and making it obedient to Christ. Where I got to catching yourself. Because without awareness, how do you know what to change, right? So I came up with the step of you have to catch yourself having these thoughts. Okay, you can't stop them if you don't know you're having them, right? First step is to catch it, to be aware of it, so that you can put a stop to it, right? You need to notice and choose wisely what you're thinking about. You need to think thoughts that, according to Philippians 4:8 says, thoughts that are lovely, pure, right, and true, that are admirable. We're supposed to put our focus on heaven above, we're supposed to align our thoughts with what Christ says. Are we doing that? Because Christ isn't about negativity and fear and worry and anxiety. So if we're having these type of thoughts, right? And I just want to update the group and see if there's any comments or anything. If we're having these type of thoughts, we're not focusing on heaven above. We're not putting our focus on God and Christ and what Christ says for us. Okay. So first step is to take our thoughts captive, to catch yourself. Second step is to get present, as what I said before. Now, Matthew 6:34, and I read this last week, is that we're not to worry about tomorrow because tomorrow will have its own troubles. We need to be present because that's where God is. That is where God is. That's where we receive our blessings. We can't receive our blessings if we're worried about a future that hasn't happened yet. If we're reliving the past over and over and not learning from it. Maybe that's why so many of you have not heard from God. Are you where God is? We can take that action. Remember when I said the what if thinking? Our thoughts can help us. Our thoughts absolutely can help us take action. But you need to be present. So that you can think about, well, if this were to happen in the future, it's okay to plan for your future. There's nothing wrong with thinking about the future and saying, okay, if that happens, I'll just do this and this. But you need to not dwell in the future or dwell in the past. Go right back and remember, when I get to that future point, when it becomes my present time, who's going to be with me? So, the Philippians 4, again, but this is 6 and 7, is where it tells us we're not to be anxious. We're not to worry. We're not to be anxious about anything, right? We need to seek God. We need to pray and make our requests known to God, giving him thanksgiving, so that he can give you peace. When we do that, okay, he will guard our minds and hearts in Christ Jesus. Are we seeking God? And you might say, yes, I am. But if you're seeking him in the present time, giving him your worries, and then worrying and worrying and worrying about when's it going to happen? When am I going to be transformed? When is this going to go away? When? And God's probably sending people into your life to help you. Are you receiving that help? Are you taking measures to listen and do what you're told to do? Maybe that's God answering you, answering your prayer. We need to pray, give it to God, trust that he's going to give you exactly what you're asking for. He doesn't want you to live like this. He wants peace for your life. But if you're still saying, well, how? Maybe he is answering you and you're not listening. Who is he sending to you? Are you listening to things and not implementing? Romans 12 says you need to be transformed by renewing your minds in Christ Jesus. The mindset that you have right now, you're not going to overcome anxiety with that mindset. You need to take steps to make changes. If the mind that you have right now caused all of these issues, okay, if you don't change anything, you're going to always get what you always got. We need to renew our minds. My last step, and this is what I call guarding. And this I definitely got from the Bible, because Proverbs 4:23 tells you, above all else, guard your heart, which in the Bible also means your mind, for everything flows from it. In other words, you gotta guard your mind, your thoughts, because they're going to determine what you experience. You want a different experience in life? You need to be transformed, right? But you need to guard your mind. In other words, you need to be actively choose what's in your mind. But how do you know what to do if you don't have the awareness? That's why all of this is so important. Romans 8:6 says to live in the Spirit, not in the flesh. To live in the Spirit heads to peace, will give you peace. If you live in the flesh, that leads to death. Now, I'm not saying you're going to die. What that means is like a spiritual death, okay? It's more of you're not going to receive God's blessings if you keep living in the flesh, relying on the flesh, and not listening to what the Spirit tells you to do, not looking for what God. I'm just refreshing here and see if there's any comments. Ladies, do you have any comments, anything to say about anything that I'm saying? Do you need any clarity? Any questions? So you're thinking, okay, there's a reason why you have the thoughts that you do. And those thoughts can be so crazy. Like, why would I even think that? And cause you so much angst, so much anxiety. Can turn your life upside down. But you're in control of what you do with those thoughts. They may just pop up in your mind, but you're in control of what stays in your mind. What do you do with those thoughts? That's on you. Catch yourself. Catch yourself, okay? Get really present. Take the steps to renew your mind and guard that mind. I know some of you just came on. I am just ending this live right now. I said some great things about thoughts. Make sure that you rewatch this live training, and you'll hear everything that I said. And for those of you who are watching the replay, if you need any clarity, and if you have any questions, let me know. Always put it in the comments and I'll get back to you. And if you implement the things that I say, you should start seeing a difference. And if you have a hard time with implementation, get in contact with me and let's talk about the programs that I have that can help you with that implementation and help you get what you need to take back control of your thinking, of your emotions, and get a different experience for your life. Oh, you're up in the mountains, Jazzy. All right. You're up in the mountains. Good for you. Enjoy that. Enjoy that. So with that said, ladies, thank you for listening. And I hope this training helped you learn more about thoughts and what to hold in your mind, and how to take whatever action to do something different. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you next time. Be well, take care, and contact me anytime that you need help or some kind of guidance and support to overcome this. Be well, take care, bye.